Greetings, I am Andrea, and my existence underwent a profound transformation 5 years into my matrimony with Dorian. We epitomized the ideal couple, I an educator and he a manager at an energy corporation. Life up to that juncture adhered to a rather conventional trajectory. However, the trajectory deviated significantly when Dorian's father passed away, leaving his mother, Cecilia, in solitude within their ancestral abode. It was at this juncture that Dorian unleashed the bombshell, interrupting my routine one night with a grave proclamation. "Andrea, we need to talk," Dorian asserted abruptly, his tone laden with gravity, causing me to halt mid-scroll on my phone. I gazed up, inquiring, "What's the matter? Is everything all right?" He drew a deep breath before responding, "It concerns Mom. She's alone in that ancestral home since Dad's demise. I believe we should relocate and reside with her." My stomach plummeted at the suggestion of cohabiting with Cecilia, knowing our relationship mirrored that of oil and water. "Dorian, are you serious? You're aware Cecilia and I barely find common ground," I protested. Undeterred, he leaned against the kitchen counter, his countenance resolute. "I understand, but she's my mother, and she's grappling with the situation. Besides, we're squandering money on this leased apartment," he implored. I sighed, running a hand through my hair, grappling with the notion of surrendering our cherished space and making Cecilia's residence our own. Dorian's plea resonated in his voice, beseeching me to consider the matter beyond mere physical space. "It's about family. Mom needs us." I bit my lip, feeling cornered. "Your mom needs us, or you need your mom," I remarked. He frowned. "That's not fair, Andrea. It's not like I'm asking you to live in a dump. It's a huge house, plenty of room for all of us." I crossed my arms, feeling the tension rise. "And what about our life here?" "Just uproot everything because Cecilia snaps her fingers." Dorian's tone heightened. "It's not like that, and you know it. I'm thinking about what's best for everyone." I shot back, "Everyone or just Cecilia?" He threw his hands up in frustration. "Darn it, Andrea, can't you just try to see the bigger picture here?" I glared at him. "I am looking at the bigger picture, Dorian, our life, our independence, not just playing happy families in that gloomy old house of hers." The argument went in circles, but eventually I caved, fed up for the sake of peace. Moving day came, and it was as uncomfortable as I had imagined. Cecilia's house was this imposing old structure with echoing rooms and a constant chill in the air. Cecilia greeted us with a stiff smile. "Welcome, welcome to my home. I expect you to respect my ways." I forced a smile, trying to keep the peace. "Of course, Cecilia, we appreciate you letting us stay." Living with Cecilia was like living with a hawk. She had a comment for everything. "Don't put the dishes away like that," or "You're overwatering the plants." It was relentless. One night, after a particularly harsh critique on my cooking, I exploded to Dorian in our room. "I can't do a darn thing right for your mother. It's like living with a drill sergeant," I vented. Dorian rubbed his temples, looking equally frustrated. "Andrea, just give it time. She's old and set in her ways." I threw my hands up. "Great, so we just tiptoe around her till the end of time." He didn't have an answer, and honestly, neither did I. This house, with its constant surveillance and Cecilia's scrutinizing eyes, was suffocating. Life in Cecilia's house was turning into a daily grind. Just when I thought I could handle it, Dorian dropped another bombshell. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, and I was trying to find some peace in the garden when he came out. "Andrea, we need to talk," Dorian said, leaning on the garden gate. I looked up, feeling a knot in my stomach. "What now, Dorian?" He took a deep breath. "I think you should quit your job and stay home. We're spending a fortune on a nurse and housekeeper. It makes more sense." I stood up, anger rising. "Quit my job, Dorian? I love teaching. It's not just about the money." He ran his hand through his hair, his tone getting edgy. "I know, but think about it. It'll make things easier around here." I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. "So what? I just become a full-time maid and nurse. That's not the life I want." Dorian's voice rose. "It's not about what we want, Andrea. It's about what's practical. My mom needs us." I glared at him. "No, your mom needs you. I didn't sign up to be her caretaker." He shot back. "Well, things change, Andrea. We need to adapt." That word felt like a slap. I love my job, my independence. This isn't adapting. This is sacrificing. I sighed, defeated. "You know what, Dorian? Fine, I'll do it. But don't expect me to be happy about it." He sighed, a look of relief crossing his face. "Thank you, Andrea. It means a lot. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I was losing a part of myself. Quitting my job was hard, but the days that followed were harder. I was now a full-time housekeeper, nurse, and cook. Cecilia, as always, had her 2 cents to add about everything. "Those curtains need a wash," she'd say, or "the soup is too salty." It was endless. One day, I snapped. Cecilia was criticizing the way I ironed her clothes, and I couldn't take it anymore. "Cecilia, can you just stop? I'm doing my best here," I pleaded. She looked taken aback. "Well, I'm sorry if I have standards, Andrea." I threw the iron down, my voice shaking with frustration. "I'm not your servant, Cecilia. I'm your son's wife. I'm here, attempting to help, and all you do is criticize me." There was a moment of tense silence, and then Cecilia's expression softened slightly. "I know you're trying, Andrea. I'm just used to things a certain way." I sighed, feeling the tension drain out of me. "I know, Cecilia, but I'm not you. I have my way of doing things." From that day on, things were slightly better. Cecilia toned down her criticisms, and I tried to accommodate her quirks. It was a fragile truce, but it was better than the constant battles. As time dragged on in Cecilia's house, the atmosphere grew denser, almost suffocating. Dorian's behavior became increasingly distant and elusive. He was always late from work, and when he was home, he might as well have been invisible, retreating to the spare room as if it were his sanctuary. One evening, unable to bear the silence and distance anymore, I cornered him in the kitchen. "Dorian, what's going on with you? You're hardly here, and when you are, it's like you're not even my husband anymore." He avoided eye contact, absent-mindedly stirring his coffee. "Work's a nightmare right now, Andrea. Just piles of stress." I leaned back against the counter, my arms folded. "I get stressed, Dorian, but this feels like you're shutting me out. You're here, but you're not really here." He exhaled heavily, his gaze still fixed on his coffee. "I don't know what you want me to say, Andrea. I'm just really tied up with stuff." I wanted to believe him, to understand, but something inside me screamed that there was more to it. Then there was Jessica, Dorian's sister, who made it her mission to add to the tension. Each visit from her was a trial. She'd look around the house with a sneer and quip, "Still stuck in this old dump, huh?" I usually bit my tongue, but one day, her taunts hit a nerve. "Not all of us have the luxury to mooch off others, Jessica," I shot back. She just chuckled, her voice grating on my nerves. "Oh, look at you playing the maid in a haunted house. Pathetic." I clenched my jaw, holding back a barrage of words. Dorian, ever the silent bystander, offered no defense. His silence was like another jab, another confirmation of the growing gulf between us. The biggest shift, however, came with Cecilia. One day she called for Jessica, her voice frail and desperate. "Jessica, I need help with a bath. I can't manage on my own anymore." Jessica's response was cold and cutting. "Help yourself, Mom. I'm not your caretaker." Cecilia broke down in tears, and my heart couldn't take it. Despite our rocky history, I couldn't leave her in that state. I helped her with the bath, and something between us changed that day. Cecilia started to warm up to me, treating me less like an intruder and more like a daughter. It was a welcome change, but it also highlighted how far Dorian and I had drifted apart. The house felt colder, emptier. Despite Cecilia's newfound warmth towards me, the walls seemed to echo with the growing silence between Dorian and me, a chasm that widened with each passing day. The chill in our home grew colder, Dorian's late nights at work became the norm, and our conversations turned into mere whispers of their former selves. During one of these fleeting interactions, Dorian dropped a new piece of news that would add to the growing pile of secrets and lies. "Andrea, I got an apartment near work," he said nonchalantly, as if he were talking about the weather. I almost dropped the dish I was cleaning. "An apartment? Why on earth would you need that?" He leaned against the doorframe, avoiding my gaze. "It's just practical, Andrea. It saves me the commute, especially with the late nights." I felt a surge of anger and confusion. "And you just decided this without talking to me? What are we, roommates now?" He shrugged, his indifference cutting deep. "I thought you'd be happy, less stress about me coming home late with a neutral expression. Yes, Dorian, Andrea approached me about the renovations. I thought it might bring some new life to the house." Dorian's frustration escalated. "You're allowing her to do this. This is our family home, Mom, not some DIA project." Cecilia sighed. "Dorian, dear, sometimes change can be good. Andrea has good intentions." Dorian shot back. "Good intentions or not, she should have asked me. It's my family home too." I interjected, Dorian, I'm trying to improve this place, not destroy it. Can't you see that? His tone remained stern. You're overstepping, Andrea. This is not your decision to make. I retorted, when was the last time you even cared about this place, Dorian? I'm trying to bring life back into it. He took a step closer, his voice rising. You're taking control, pushing everyone else aside. I stared at him incredulously. Taking control, Dorian? I'm just making this gloomy place livable. Maybe if you spent more time here, you'd see that. Before Dorian could respond, Cecilia intervened. What's all this noise about? Dorian turned to her. Mom, did you know about this? About her changing the house? Cecilia looked from me to Dorian and back again, her expression contemplative. Yes, Dorian, Andrea approached me about the renovations. I thought it might bring some new life to the house. Dorian's frustration heightened. You're allowing her to do this? This is our family home, Mom, not some DIY project. Cecilia sighed. Dorian, dear, sometimes change can be good. Andrea has good intentions. I stood there, my disbelief evident in the way I shook my head. The tension was palpable as I uttered, Happy, Dorian? This feels like you're living a double life. What's next? You'll tell me you have a second family? He sighed, rubbing his forehead. Don't be dramatic, Andrea. It's not like that. Despite wanting to push further, to break through his nonchalant facade, I knew it was futile. The conversation ended there, as did many of our interactions those days. The true shock came a few days later during a candid conversation with Cecilia. We were in the living room, sharing a rare moment of calm when she suddenly said, You know, Dorian didn't buy that apartment with his money. Puzzled, I looked at her, and she hesitated before revealing he used my savings. He said it was an investment, and he even put it in my name. My heart sank. He's been using your money, and you're okay with this? I asked. Cecilia shrugged, a sad look in her eyes. I couldn't say no. He's my son, but I thought you should know. Dorian's secret apartment was one thing, but using his mother's savings under the guise of investment felt like the man I married was slipping away, replaced by a stranger with secrets and lies. A few days later, I confronted Dorian about it. Dorian, why didn't you tell me the apartment was bought with your mom's money? He was unapologetic, almost defiant, as he responded, because I knew you'd react like this. It's an investment, Andrea. It's not a big deal. I couldn't believe his audacity. Not a big deal. You're gambling with your mom's savings and keeping it from me. What else are you hiding? He turned away, ending the conversation with a dismissive wave. You wouldn't understand, Andrea. It's business. That word felt like a chasm between us, an excuse for everything going wrong in our marriage. Living in Cecilia's old, dreary house was taking its toll on me. The walls, once vibrant, now echoed with a somber tone, and every creaking floorboard seemed to whisper secrets. One day, unable to take it anymore, I proposed a change. Cecilia, have you ever thought about renovating the house? It could use some freshening up. Cecilia looked up from her tea, surprised. Renovate? I hadn't thought about it in years. It's such a big task. I nodded, feeling a spark of enthusiasm. I know, but it could really brighten up the place. Maybe just start with a new coat of paint or some new wallpaper. Cecilia considered it for a moment. Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to bring some new life into this old house. But are you sure you're up for it? I smiled, eager for a project. Absolutely. It'll be a good change. So the renovation began. I threw myself into it, painting walls, choosing wallpapers, and attempting to restore some of the old furniture. It was hard work, but it felt good, like I was breathing life back into the house and, in a way, into myself. One day, while immersed in the renovation, Dorian walked in. His expression turned to shock and disbelief. What the hell, Andrea? What are you doing to my mom's house? I stood up, wiping the sweat from my brow. I'm renovating, Dorian, like I told Cecilia. It's time this place got a little love and care. Dorian's face reddened, and he retorted, You had no right to start changing things without asking me. This is my family home, not some DIY project. My temper rose. Your home. When was the last time you even cared about this place, Dorian? I'm trying to make this gloomy place livable. Maybe if you spent more time here, you'd see that. Before he could retort, Cecilia walked in. What's all this noise about? Dorian turned to her. Mom, did you know about this? About her changing the house? Cecilia looked from me to Dorian and back again. Yes, I did, and I'm glad she's doing it. This house needed a change, and Andrea is doing a wonderful job. Dorian looked like he'd been slapped, but Cecilia cut him off, her tone firm. It's my home, Dorian, and I want this. Andrea has every right to do what she's doing. Dorian stormed out of the room, leaving me and Cecilia in an awkward silence. I felt a mix of victory and sadness. The house was transforming, but the gap between Dorian and me seemed to only grow wider. As time passed, Cecilia's health became a constant roller coaster. Small victories were overshadowed by the looming fear of the worst. Then it happened. Another stroke, more severe this time. The call from the hospital felt like a punch to the gut, but Cecilia didn't make it. The funeral was somber, and I stood beside the grave, my heart heavy. That's when Dorian arrived, accompanied by a woman I didn't recognize and two small kids. I whispered to myself, "Who's she?" My eyes fixed on the unfamiliar woman. Dorian approached, and with a flat tone, he said, "This is Shannon, my wife, and these are our kids." I felt like I'd been slapped again. "Your wife? When did this happen?" He shrugged, his voice cold. "A while ago." "It's none of your business, Andrea." I stood there, processing the layers of betrayal, secrets, and lies that had unfolded. The home that once held echoes of our laughter was now a silent witness to the fractures in our marriage. I was left speechless, my mind reeling at the revelation. How could Dorian have a wife and kids during all this time with Cecilia? Jessica was there too, her usual sneer in place, mocking my genuine grief. "Finally showing your true colors, Andrea, playing the grieving daughter-in-law. It's a bit late for that," she sneered. I glared at her, my voice laced with contempt. "I was here for Cecilia when you both abandoned her. Don't you dare judge me." Dorian interjected, eager to move on. "Let's just get this over with. We have other matters to discuss." After the funeral, the gathering moved to Cecilia's house for the will reading. Dorian and Jessica were like vultures, eagerly awaiting their share. The lawyer began reading the will, and that's when the bombshell dropped. Everything, the house, the money, all of it was left to me. Dorian's face went from smug to shocked. "What the hell? This can't be right." Jessica was fuming. She was our mother. How could she leave everything to this nobody? I stood there stunned, not sure how to feel. Happy, vindicated, it all felt hollow. Dorian turned to me, his voice filled with accusation. "You manipulated her, didn't you? Turned her against us." I shook my head, disbelief and anger mixing in my voice. "I did nothing but care for her, which is more than I can say for you." The lawyer intervened. Cecilia was very clear in her will. Jessica was seething. "This is not the end. We'll contest this. There's no way we're letting her get away with this." As they left in a huff, I stood there alone in the house that was now legally mine. The walls witnesses to so much pain, betrayal, and love. I looked around, feeling the weight of Cecilia's last act of kindness and the burden of a broken family. The house felt different now, like it was echoing with Cecilia's last wishes. I sat there holding the will, still trying to wrap my head around everything. Cecilia had left it all to me, and Dorian and Jessica were raging mad about it. They came back the next day, fired up. "You really think you can just take everything?" Dorian burst out as soon as he stepped in. I limped up, tired but standing my ground. "Cecilia decided this, Dorian. It was her choice." Jessica was red in the face, yelling, "You tricked a sick old lady. We won't let you get away with this." I stood up, fed up with their nonsense. "Tricked? I was there for her, unlike you too. She chose to leave it to me." Their yelling didn't stop, but it was just noise against the truth I knew. I was there for Cecilia when they weren't. The lawyer showed up with a video Cecilia had made, her voice filling the room. She said it clear as day, "I left everything to Andrea because she was like the daughter I never had. She was there when my own kids weren't. She deserves it all." The room went quiet. Dorian looked like he'd been punched in the gut, and Jessica started crying, finally realizing what they had done. After that, Dorian and Jessica left, and all their threats fell flat. I was alone in the big house, surrounded by the past and thinking about the future. I decided to divorce Dorian. It was tough, but it had to be done. He and his new family had to move to a rental place, and Jessica had her own mess to deal with. Her debts and bad choices were catching up to her. As for me, I was standing in my new house, feeling sad, but also kind of excited. Cecilia's will wasn't just about the house and money. It was like she was telling me to be strong and make my own way. I decided to start over, use what Cecilia left me to build something new for myself. The house, once a reminder of tough times, was now a place for new beginnings.